It's often thought that you shouldn't do both strength training and endurance training together, or at least you can't get better at both at the same time. But personally, I do both. So here's why and some thoughts and pointers around making it most effective. People often say if you're doing lots of cardio, that's going to hinder your strength gains and your muscle gains, and vice versa. If you're doing a lot of strength work, potentially that's going to hinder your cardiovascular ability. Now, whilst that might be somewhat true, it's not impossible to get better at both at the same time or get to a good level with both aspects of fitness. I might be a personal trainer, S&C coach, and technically sports scientist. That sounds pretty fancy. But my own personal training and approach might not be the best for you. And I'm a big believer of one size doesn't fit all. I want to start this one off by saying I'm not amazing at either cardio or strength-based stuff compared to a lot of people, but I'm pretty happy with that, and there's a good reason why. Ultimately, for me, I'm not a competitive athlete paid to do any sport. So I'm not trying to be an Olympian or the best at anything. I just want to be healthy, practice what I preach, and be a good role model for my kids. With that being my goal and that in mind, I don't need to or want to specialize in any area of fitness in particular. I just want to do a mix of things that get the physiological response that's going to help my physical and mental health, getting me to a point where I can be healthy and also help other people in these areas, but also provide me with challenges and enjoyment along the way. Obviously, to achieve a healthy heart, lungs, overall cardiovascular system, respiratory system, and brain, endurance training does wonders for that, and it also reduces the risk of diseases in these areas. But I also know if I don't do any exercise by the time I'm 65, I could be 80% weaker than I am now, and that's just crazy to me. I can imagine doing the things I do now and being a parent all with 80% less strength than I have at the moment, and I don't want that life. At work, I've also seen a mixture of people, young people with preventable injuries causing huge problems both physically and mentally, and also older people with no mobility, depression, and at great risk of things like fractures and cardiovascular disease. And that's not to mention the number of people that aren't happy or don't feel great about how they look or how fit they are. Another thing that hugely matters for me is quality of life. For as long as I'm here, I'm living, and I need to function with this body and brain, I want it to be fit. That means feeling good, strong, confident, and at reduced risks of all of these health problems. So my drivers and motivations for doing both are partly selfish, but then I can also serve other people around me better. My family, my friends, the people I work with. Having the health, the energy, the strength, and the time to do all that is pretty damn important to me. I don't want to be a burden on society with my mental or physical health, and I don't want to weigh those around me down with these things either. I want to be able to be fit, healthy, and encourage those around me and support those around me in a good way. So being generally fit and healthy, I think, allows me to do these things. Another driver for me, but slightly more vain and slightly more superficial, is how strength and endurance training shapes my body. I'm not sure if this is right or wrong, and I don't think it can be the only motivation, but looking how I want to, feeling like I look okay, and having worked for it, massively helps my self-esteem and confidence and just general mental health. So there is a little bit of vanity that comes into this as well. And to be honest, that might have been what got me into fitness and what got me started at a young age, trying to build that confidence and feel a bit better about myself. But now that's not the only thing that keeps me going. So there's the reasons why I do both endurance and strength training. It's a long-term thing for me, and there's many drivers behind it. Now, how do I balance it and how do I make it most effective? For me, strength is going to be the base. It's going to be the foundation to do anything upon. So typically I'll do between 3 to 5 sessions of strength training per week, and as a minimum I try and do 3 strength sessions a week. Sometimes I have breaks, sometimes I'm away on holiday for a week, but typically on average I try and do at least 3 strength training sessions a week. If I do up to 5 sessions, they tend to be shorter, with the body parts split up slightly more to allow for additional recovery. So if I'm particularly wanting to gain strength or build muscle at a certain time, I'll make this more of a priority and I'll get closer to that 5 sessions per week. However, if I'm focusing more on endurance, then I'll do that at least 3 strength sessions a week and potentially 4, but focusing on all compound lifts based on overall strength and health. And I'll consistently do exercises like squats, deadlifts, bench press, pull-ups, press-ups, and sit-ups. Now, they might be boring, but they're simply the best for getting the stimulus that I'm after, maintaining and slightly improving strength over time whilst I'm doing more endurance-based stuff. As for endurance training itself, I've traditionally found this less enjoyable and harder to get motivated for, but I still have those solid reasons to do it. So a great way for me to get motivated and to be accountable is to sign up for endurance-based events. I've only recently started doing this, but I found signing up for things like triathlons is a good way of getting me to do a mix of endurance training, and I find it enjoyable and motivating at the same time. So that works for me to help me tick that box of cardiovascular exercise and endurance-based training. It just gives me another driver and motivation to do that sort of training that I find particularly hard, and that seems to work well for me. It's also a good way to add challenge into my training, to push myself outside my comfort zone, extend my capabilities, and build confidence. Now, the first triathlon I did, I had the lifeguard following me up and down the pool with a pole just in case I drowned. And I had the slowest time of the entire event. When I got to the bike, my bike was the last one left in the rack. And as a personal trainer, that's quite funny. But this meant completing something that was so far out of my comfort zone, built so much drive and so much confidence. And I would encourage anybody to take on challenges like this, because you can really gain a lot from it, and often you're more capable than you think. Now, just to give you a bit more structure of how I balance these two and a better picture of how it all works in practice, I'll put up a weekly schedule on the screen of basically two different phases that both include a mixture of endurance and strength training, with slightly more kind of leaning towards one aspect than the other. You can definitely do an equal split of both at the same time, but I found this method works for me where I'm slightly prioritizing one over the other at certain times of the year. But if you wanted to balance things out, you could easily do that as well. A good place for me to start is my current training. Most of my time is spent doing cardio at the minute, and there's a few reasons for this. With us coming into the summer, endurance events are typically coming up, and so it makes sense for me to prioritize it slightly. It also helps me stay leaner, which is more effective when I'm doing things like endurance-based exercise and events. And weather is also a factor for me prioritizing endurance-based stuff a little bit more come the summer months. It's a little bit nicer to be out riding, swimming, and running when it's nice and warm outside and we've got more daylight hours. Another bonus here is I'm more likely to be topless in the summer months, and I can have that added confidence of being a little bit leaner that I get from doing more endurance-based training. And then when it gets colder, coming into the winter, I can focus more on strength-based stuff, add a little bit of body fat, get stronger, and also have additional warmth. It also makes sense in terms of the hours and the time put in to have more of that focus on endurance-based stuff, because relatively that takes more time when you're trying to build the endurance system. So the strength sessions are fewer and shorter, but are higher intensity and require more recovery time. Typically, endurance training takes longer than strength type training. So looking at the weekly schedule, it's going to be slightly weighed in that favor. Then in the off season, or let's call it the winter months, the opposite is kind of true. I'll focus more on building strength. So I'm always going to be doing both at different points, but I'll prioritize things accordingly to maximize the gains where I want them. It means I can really make some solid improvements in one area without sacrificing too much the other end of the spectrum, either strength or endurance. I know this method isn't conducive to being super strong or great at endurance events, but I'm happy with the trade-off for overall health it delivers. Yes, I could be faster going up the hills on the bike if I had less arm muscle, and yes, I could be stronger if I did less cardio and I had more energy for strength-based sessions, but I want to be more well-rounded than that, which goes back to what I explained at the start. What do I do though if I'm doing both a strength and endurance session in the same day, or maybe I'm doing two endurance sessions and a strength session in the same day? I want to kind of point out here what I would prioritize. So if I'm prioritizing strength, I'm focusing on that more in a particular phase, then I'll do that at the start of the day. That will be my key session. I'll make sure I get that out of the way first. This means that I'm just freshest for that, and if anything crops up and I need to miss a session for any reason, I've made sure I've done the key session anyway. And vice versa, if I'm really focusing on cardio at the minute, I'm trying to build that endurance base, but I'm also doing the strength stuff, I'll make sure I do the cardio workout first, so I'm nice and fresh for that and I'm not sore going into it. Whilst we're here, another thing I should probably mention is, whilst swimming, running and biking all build that cardiovascular endurance and that base that I'm looking for, there's many other different ways to do it. This is just kind of what I've chosen based off preference and the events that I'm going into. And same goes for strength. There's loads of different ways to build strength. You can do weights, you can do body weight workouts, you can do yoga of certain types, but I typically go for weight-based training and body weight exercises. So there's many ways to get to Rome. You can definitely pick and choose what's gonna be best for you. Now over to you a little bit. I'm interested to hear what your goals are with training, and if you have any questions around this stuff, and if you found any of it useful, if it was relevant at all, let me know in the comments below. But that's it for this one. If you did like it, then like it. And until my next one, have a really good one, and I'll see you then.